What's up, everybody? This is Parker with Take His Whistle podcast. We are back once again with another college football podcast coming to you. The second episode of our college football series. Today, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Louisville, Kentucky, a lot of upsets. Stay tuned.
Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins! Oh my God! Auburn's gonna win the football game!
Lets it fly.
Oh my goodness! Touchdown LSU! They win the game!
Back today, so I got time to be tripping and writing no love song. Yeah, writing no love song. We all experience love loss. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? This is Parker with Take His Whistle podcast. I am one of the hosts here, and I am always accompanied with one of my best friends in this entire world, Josh.
What's going on, everybody?
And today we are back with another college football one. This is our second upload on the college football series. Today we're kind of just going to go over some just kind of stuff that happened over the past few weeks, or last week, I should say, and what's going to happen this week too. Crazy upsets.
It was a good one.
Yeah, crazy upsets all around the board. Big things with our favorite teams, Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to do a little bit of talk about them. So yeah, let's hop right into this thing. Anything you want to start with, Josh?
I guess let's start with all the upsets that we had last week, because last week was a hell of a week for upsets. I mean, it was probably the most upsets we'll have this year. At least I'd assume so, just because of the pure amount that we had last week.
Yeah. So I think the one to kind of start out with is one that not a lot of people saw coming. Not a lot of people were talking about, as in this was going to be an upset. Washington State at UCLA. If you listened to last week, I miraculously picked UCLA to win this game. I don't know how.
Unbelievable.
But they somehow did it. Josh, did you watch any of this game? And if so, what was kind of like your takeaways? Why was UCLA able to pick up this win?
I did not watch it at all, but I looked at the box score, and honestly, the UCLA defense looked incredible. I mean, it looked like the defense is really what got them that win. You're looking at an unranked team playing at home against a ranked team who has looked really good in the first few weeks of the season. And, that's always something that everyone likes to keep their eyes on, especially if you're a fan of said team. And it really looks like UCLA's defense really showed out in that one.
Right, yeah. Cameron Ward, the quarterback for Washington State, who's had a really good season up to this point. He was kind of just stopped. I know he threw 192 yards, but terrible completion percentage. He went 18 for 38, and he threw 2 picks. So that just kind of just shows how dominating UCLA's defense was that nobody really knew about.
Yeah, and when you're looking at that UCLA team, it really is just their defense that you can look and point at and say, yeah, that's the part of their team that's going to win them games, because, they're rocking with a true freshman QB right now. So I don't think many people know that, but Dante Moore is trying his best over there, and he's doing pretty good for a true freshman. But, a true freshman can only go so far, and when you're not named Johnny Manziel, it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, and I see that wide receiver, senior Keegan Jones, he actually ran in 2 touchdowns the last week. So that's pretty insane to think about. It looks like he actually didn't even get a catch. Wide receiver didn't even get a catch, but he ran in 2 touchdowns.
That's a stat for sure.
Definitely. Another big up. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you might have even been able to, you were probably about to bring it up, but another game that I think more people had their attention on, the Red River Shootout. I'm not going to say Red River Rivalry, because why would I say that? 3 R's in a row, that's just way too hard to say. The Red River Shootout, Oklahoma getting the win over Texas. Number 3 at the time, number 9 now, Texas. And I forget what Oklahoma was. Were they 10? No. They were 12. Number 12 Oklahoma moving up to number 5 after getting we watched that game, Parker. It was quite a win.
Yeah, especially that first quarter, man. That first quarter was some of the most fun I've had, like, watching college football in such a long time. Anything that is called crazy in college football happened, as far as interceptions, blocked punts. There was almost a safety in that block punt. Just crazy thing after crazy thing in that first quarter. Things kind of settled down afterwards. Um, Props to Oklahoma though. Really, like I definitely, especially last week, how much we hyped up Texas to be this powerhouse. I know I was saying that if I had to do the rankings of top 25 for last week, I would have Texas over Georgia. And
Yeah, I think we both had them at number one in our national rankings last week. And
right, yeah.
I mean, like you said, that first quarter was really entertaining with the interceptions, the fumbles, the turnovers, the points, just everything. And Dylan Gabriel, the Oklahoma QB, just looked outstanding that game. And a lot of people were doubting him and that team coming into this game. By the way, real quick, I just want to say I've been sick for the past couple days, so if I sound like congested or whatever, that's the problem. I apologize if that's bothering you. Not really. I'm not sorry. But but Dylan Gabriel really showed out in that game, and Quinn Ewers looked the complete opposite. That first interception he threw on one of Texas's first drives was a horrible decision by him.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we even talked about this last week. We kind of said this is a make or break game for Dylan Gabriel. This is really going to show what he is truly about. Can he? We know that he can beat up on these smaller schools, these teams that aren't good. But what does he do whenever the pressure's on him? Like a team like Texas comes, you go to Texas actually, and he really.
I think it was a middle ground game.
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely. I think what's more impressive than his quarterback skills that I knew he already had was how well he was able to run that ball. And I knew he was athletic. Everybody knew he was an athletic quarterback, but the way he just ran all over that Texas defense really just put the whole world on notice of Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, I mean, 23 completions to 38 attempts is a fairly good stat line for a QB, adding on 285 yards and one passing touchdown. But to add on to that, 14 carries for 113 yards and a rushing touchdown himself. Not to mention he cut his finger wide open like in the second quarter and just started bleeding everywhere, which was kind of disgusting to see, but it shows the mentality of him I mean, I don't know how much it hurt, but to the mentality to, start bleeding that bad. I mean, blood was dripping off of his hand onto the ball. I mean, that's how COVID spread, you know what I mean? So,
right.
Not actually. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But just an impressive game by Dylan Gabriel for sure, and definitely one that he can put down in his book as one of his most impressive performances of his career for sure.
And big thing, I'm kind of just looking forward to this whole week in general, this week 7 coming up. But Oklahoma just kind of seeing, can they continue that momentum? They're playing UCF, who is not the best team. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now. Can he continue that domination, just quarterback play and win convincingly over a lesser opponent in UCF?
I mean, that's surely what everyone's looking forward to see if he can continue that progression in his play or keep up the stature of play that he had against Texas. I'm excited to see how he performs, and I'm sure Oklahoma fans are excited to see how he performs. The next game that I want to bring up to you, Parker, is, excuse me, it's not, well, yeah, it's not really an upset, but I know personally I thought there was going to be more to this game, but Alabama beating Texas. Now, I know it's not an upset, so I'll go ahead and say that right now. Alabama was ranked. Texas A&M was not. But Texas A&M at home is, that's always a rough and rowdy crowd, always loud. And Alabama and Jalen Milroe just kind of, especially with how we talked about Alabama and Jalen Milroe in the past few weeks, seeing what he did in that game against Texas A&M was pretty entertaining, or not shocking, but I can't really find the word for it, but impressive. It was pretty impressive to see. 21 for 33, 321 yards, and 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. It seems like he just picked apart that Texas A&M defense and was kind of able to just do whatever he wanted to do against them.
Yeah, and I think that win against Texas A&M is such a relief off the shoulders of all Alabama fans. Now, Milroe, he still has a lot to show. He has a lot to prove still. But I think that it's a big step going forward, especially for the rest of the season, that you can have a little bit of faith in your quarterback now. Going into this game, we didn't even know really who was going to be the starter, right? So Milroe comes in, he has a pretty solid game. Now he still has these little hiccups, and I don't think that's going to change here in the next few weeks, but at least it's a stepping stone. It's a huge stepping stone for a powerhouse like Alabama to know that they have a quarterback that they can put their faith in, that they can trust to go out and win a ball game.
Yeah, every quarterback messes up every now and then, but I think it was definitely a moment of where Alabama fans could definitely just take a deep breath, take a sigh of relief, and say, okay, we're not actually done for. We still have the chance to be the Alabama that everyone knows. So, the last upset that I got for you here, Parker, and it was quite a pretty depressing one if you are a certain fan down in Miami, Florida. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, 23 over the Miami Hurricanes, 20. And if you watched the ending to that game, Parker, it was all over ESPN. It was all over Twitter, X. Just a huge lack of judgment by the coaching staff. Could have kneeled the ball, won the game, gotten out of there with a very close win, but a win nonetheless. Instead, they decided to run the ball, and Georgia Tech forced the fumble, which wasn't a fumble. The runner was definitely down, but when you're leaving it in the hands of the refs, you can never predict what the refs are going to do. And because of that fumble, Georgia Tech was able to go, I believe it was 75 yards down the field for the game-winning touchdown with no time on the clock.
And I told you this. It might have been on Sunday, actually. I know I told you this at some point. In my honest opinion, every coach on the coaching staff of Miami, Florida needs to be fired. You can't. I don't care how much you are confident in your ball runner or your blockers that he's not going to fumble this ball. What in your right mind is telling you to run the ball in the first place? Why? Why don't you kneel it? What good does those 2 extra yards do? It wasn't like he's here to break an ACC record. He needs these 2 yards to break a record. They were just being greedy. And now that it's all played out, I'm glad that Georgia Tech was able to win that game, right? I would have been a lot more upset if they forced the fumble, but they weren't able to get the touchdown. It's just a hit, literally just kick you while you're down if you're Miami. You got to be smarter than that.
They paid the price. They paid the price for sure. Now, I know I said that was the last upset, but it actually wasn't. But I wanted to hold on to this one because as a fan of this team, I just have so much to say about it, and I didn't want to take up the time that we had to talk about the upsets, and I wanted to use this time to talk about number 25 Louisville beating number 10 Notre Dame 33-20 at home at L&N. Parker, let me hear your thoughts about the game first.
Yeah, for sure. So if you guys probably already knew, if you didn't, me and Josh actually went to the game, had phenomenal seats for that action, absolutely, and we knew it was sold out, but I didn't know if it was really going to be sold out. You know what I mean? But that place was so loud and so electric. I'm a diehard Kentucky fan, meaning with that means I'm not supposed to like Louisville. Now I'm already a odd man out because I don't hate Louisville. I actually support Louisville. Even though I was picking Notre Dame to win this game, I support Louisville. That game had me cheering for Louisville. That had me screaming. I had lost my voice. Unbelievable performance. What a night. That whole night was just wonderful for the city of Louisville, our hometown.
Had my guy taking off his Notre Dame shirt midway through the game to rep Louisville.
Yeah, it was 40 degrees. I'm taking my shirt off to put it, and then because I was just like, you know what? Why not? Why not? From what I saw from this game, just breaking down this game, analyzing what I saw. Sam Hartman is the topic that I want to kind of hold on because I know you're going to talk about Louisville as a team, so I kind of want to go to the opposite side, and I kind of want to talk about Notre Dame. What did Notre Dame do wrong? And it all points to Sam Hartman. He looked borderline unplayable. He didn't look like the Sam Hartman that people at the beginning of the season are saying this is a potential Heisman candidate. He threw 3 interceptions. He either had 1 or 2 fumbles. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Now that's not taking credit away from Louisville's defense. Louisville's defense was locked down that game, but some of those passes were just like, what do you do? Especially toward the end of the game. I don't know if it was just like he was the defeated moment or whatever, but he had 0 effort, I should say. He looked like he was kind of just going through the motions. It just wasn't pretty if you're a Notre Dame fan. If you like Notre Dame, I would be highly pissed off at Sam Hartman and just the lack of effort that he gave that day.
Yeah, when you look at that game as a Notre Dame fan, I think there's a little bit more to point at than Sam Hartman. I think you can look at the coaching staff and ask why didn't they get the tight end more involved? Because, I mean, the tight end that they have, quite frankly, he's a stud, and the fact he only had 2 receptions, and I mean that's just you can't do that. You can't do that, and especially for a school that's somewhat known for producing pretty good tight ends historical wise. I mean, that's just unacceptable. And when we look back at that game, you can look back at that full game, and that tight end was getting open consistently in the middle of the field, and Sam Hartman was just not seeing it, or he was just being indecisive and not passing the ball, or there were a couple passes where Sam Hartman overthrew the tight end and it resulted in an interception. And I think when you look at it, you wonder why. I mean, because let's be honest, the running game was not working. Louisville, what they did to Notre Dame's O-line to get through that line and stop the run like they did, they only allowed 57 rushing yards to the team that had the number 1 running back in the nation going into that game. And to only allow 57 rushing yards and only allowing 20 yards to the number 1 running back in the nation, that is astounding to me. And to see that as a Notre Dame coaching staff and saying, hey, let's switch it up a little bit and maybe pass more, maybe get the tight end more involved, it's just unbelievable to me. And we didn't see the tight end get involved until late in the 4th quarter when Sam Hartman finally threw a touchdown pass to him for their first touchdown in the second half to get to the final score that they eventually had, which was 20. But I mean, I think if you look at Sam Hartman's never travel to list, I think Louisville might be at number 1, because the way he has performed in the city of Louisville, you might be looking at the worst quarterback in college football history.
And to your point, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
To your point, kind of just they went away from what their tried and true is, and that is running the ball. I mean, you run the ball, what's the 15, 16, 17, you run the ball 18 times with 5 different rushers. And your lead rusher, who you said was leading the country, only got the ball 10 times. I understand if sometimes things don't work out, right? If the running game isn't working, you got to figure out something else. But I mean, 10 times you didn't really even give him a shot. Am I seeing that wrong? Like, I know even if he was getting stuffed, but you got to stay to your star players.
I mean, yeah, you definitely got to keep giving him the ball. You definitely got to keep feeding him. But when you're getting stuffed at the line every single time, I don't know if you blame the running back at that point and saying, hey, why aren't you finding the holes? Because to be honest, I'm not on the field. I'm not, I can't see everything from up in the stands. So I don't know if there were any holes to begin with. But to
Right.
to put the blame on the running back there, I don't know if I quite frankly can, because the running back can only do so much, and everything that the running back gets comes from the O-line. And if the O-line was playing like Notre Dame's O-line did in that game, then no running back is going to perform well. And
Right.
off of that, if you don't mind, Parker, I'm going to go ahead and flip the switch. I'm going to flip it over to my team, Louisville, and I'm just going to give the O-line for Louisville all the flowers in the world, because they blocked their asses off for Jawar Jordan. Jawar Jordan ended the day with 21 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and they were both break-off touchdown runs. And we've said it before, Parker, and I'm going to say it again. Jawar Jordan is one of the most entertaining and most underrated players in college football right now. The way that he can just break off a run at any moment's time is something I haven't seen in a while from a running back.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think he has put himself into the top tier of he might be in that tier all by himself as the standalone best running back in the ACC.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he is the best running back in the ACC, and I don't even think it's close, to be honest. I think Jawar Jordan is just an outstanding player, and I think he should definitely be getting more recognition. And along with the O-line, I talk about Jack Plummer, 17 completions on 24 attempts, 145 yards, 1 touchdown. Not eye-popping by any means, but just enough to not, throw the game away. And was only sacked 2 times. And, I mean, that O-line gave him all the time in the world to look for open receivers. I mean, he passed the ball to 9 different receivers, I want to say, on the day, and I mean, he definitely spread the ball out. I would like to see Jack Plummer spread the ball out a little bit more consistently, because I now, as good as Jamari Thrash is, I highly doubt Jamari Thrash is the only receiver getting open. If he's the only receiver consistently getting open, then I think we might have a problem. Jamari Thrash, 8 receptions, 75 yards, 1 touchdown, came in the first quarter, first touchdown of the day. But everybody else was held to only 1 reception, except for Jawar Jordan, who had 2. But every other receiver held to just 1 reception. The next closest being Joey Gatewood at 1 reception, 18 yards. So, I mean, what do you have to say about that? Because me personally, I would like to see Plummer spread the ball out a little bit more consistently.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that it's unfortunate just because how good Thrash has been. It has kind of taken away the spotlight a little bit from Kevin Coleman. Coming into this season, you had Thrash and you had Coleman. You were thinking that's one of the best 1-2 punches in the ACC, right? That like either one of them can break off a run. They're gonna snap someone's ankle on these routes. Both of them are phenomenal route runners. They're quick, they're shifty, and Coleman really hasn't had that game yet where he has shown that hey, I'm here. I'm on this team, and I'm here to win ball games. He like on the season he has 11 catches, 173 yards, and a touchdown. You look at someone like Thrash. Thrash is looking at 30 catches, 519 yards, 6 touchdowns. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
I
leads the team by far.
Yeah. And and I even pointed this out of the game, and you even said it. Gatewood, he had a couple games or a couple plays against Notre Dame where I saw him as kind of just like a wide open target. They were leaving him middle of the field, just wide open, or even like a route going out of bounds or towards the sidelines. He had a couple opportunities to get at least a easy catches that I guess just Plummer kind of just stayed to his tried and true, which is Thrash. He knows that Thrash is going to make a play for him, and he does that. And so, I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And Louisville is undefeated.
Yeah, yeah, and I think another thing that goes with it too, though, is when you look at the two players as far as Kevin Coleman and Jamari Thrash go, I think you see Jamari Thrash getting thrown into one-on-one coverage a lot, at least way more often than Kevin Coleman. And, Jamari Thrash is taller than Kevin Coleman, so he has definitely a better jump ball percentage than Kevin Coleman does, just off of height alone, I'd say. And we've seen Jamari Thrash win those, so, why not? But also, Jamari Thrash's route running and runoff ability is incredible. I mean, he can create space in an instant, and we saw that with that touchdown pass. Just absolutely juked the hell out of the Notre Dame DB to get wide open in the corner of the end zone. And then you look at Kevin Coleman, and we've got him playing slot a lot, and so it causes, and we've got him running a lot of short routes as well, so it causes him to get defended by multiple DBs or a linebacker and a DB. So I can kind of understand Coleman not getting that many targets, mainly just because of the pure amount of people that are on him at one time. But it's definitely a little suspect, but I will say I think you should keep your eyes open for our receiving core this weekend, because I think it's really going to show how deep our team really is this weekend, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jamari Thrash might be dealing with a injury in his wrist, and
Really?
I believe he's questionable for tomorrow, so he might not play against Pitt. So I think tomorrow will be a true test for our receiving room to see who the next guy to step up is, and I hope it's Coleman. I hope it's Gateway. I hope it's any of those guys, because quite frankly, I think all of them are outstanding, and I think any of them could break out and have a big game any day. And
yeah.
I also, just real quick, and then we'll move on from my team before we get a little too deep into the pod and we're still talking about Louisville. I just want to point out real quick the defense of Louisville absolutely shutting down Notre Dame's offense, getting through the O-line with ease, shutting down the receivers. I know Notre Dame had receiver problems coming into this game with, I believe, their two best receivers being hurt, so they didn't really play. They didn't play that much, if at all. I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest, but Quincy Riley coming in with a pick, and Devin Neal, one of our safeties, coming in with 2 interceptions.
Devin Neal, the Kentucky boy.
Is he
from
Kentucky?
Oh,
is he from Kentucky?
From Lexington, actually.
Oh, nice. And then, just a player that I want to point out who stood out a lot to me, and I think to many people, Mason Rager, a walk-on D lineman who is our starting D lineman opposite of Ashton Gelati. 2 sacks on the day, and honestly,
forced fumble.
Yeah, and a forced fumble, and honestly, embarrassed the left tackle from Notre Dame, who is seen by many to be a potential top 10 pick in this upcoming year's draft. And I mean, as a walk-on, that's the type of performance that you want to see. I mean, just an insane hard worker and just an outstanding player, and I think he really showed his potential in that game. And then obviously Ashton Gelati with a sack and a half, but I think everybody kind of expects that from him. Not to say that, he shouldn't be performing to that level every game, but just on the pure aspect of him as a player, I mean, he's the leader of our defense, so to see him have a game like that was fun to watch too, because I love Gelati personally.
Yeah. Just like I said at the beginning, when we first started talking about Louisville, just such a fun time, such a good time to be there. Like, if they're now, my favorite college football game I've ever gone to was about 2 years ago when Kentucky played Florida and we pulled off the win. But if I were to take somebody that never watched football before, they don't know anything about it, they think it's dumb. This Louisville versus Notre Dame game is the exact type of game I would want to bring somebody to show them what football really is. That whole night was just picture perfect. It was beautiful, even on our Instagram, we showed it. That first touchdown by Jamari Thrash, that corner route in the corner of the end zone, that the whole crowd just erupted, and it was so loud in there. I do have a little bit of hatred towards Louisville. One of the loudest parts of that night was whenever they showed the final score of the Kentucky-Georgia game. That place erupted, and I was just like, okay. But yeah, just such a fun night.
It was a petty move by us for sure, but a funny moment as well. One thing I will say, shout out to our good friend Mason, if he's listening to this point in the episode. It was electric at LNN last week, and it is something I will never forget. But
it was electric.
Thank you for bringing up that game in Athens, Parker, because that is the next game we are going to move on to. Parker, I can start off if you'd like. I didn't watch the game, so I don't know too much, but I've got the box score up, and I can tell you the first thing that comes to my mind is Devin Leary. And not a horrible game, to be honest. 10 for 26, 128 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But, I mean, just from somebody's perspective who didn't watch the game, I know you didn't watch too much of it, but I know you were able to see a little bit of it before we got too deep into the Louisville game. I mean, what are your thoughts about that game, and what happened? Because 13-51, I mean, I know as a Louisville fan, I was giving you guys some credit going into that game last week, and personally, I was saying, hey, keep an eye out on this game because, they could do it.
Yes. We could have, and I'll be the first one to raise my hand. And even if you listen to last week's podcast, I was a full believer that Kentucky could do it. It was the storyline win. We can finally get over the hump, beat Georgia. We came nowhere close. I think, as far as Devin Leary goes, and I want to spend a little time on Devin Leary because I think that I will be the most hated Kentucky fan for saying this. I still have tons of faith in Devin Leary. A lot of people hate him. They say that he came in as the best transfer in the portal, best quarterback transfer in the portal because of his accuracy. And even Stoops even said it in the post-game interview. He said he's not finding his targets right. He's overshooting them. He's undershooting them. He's not the Devin Leary that everybody knew him as. And could that be kind of some lingering injuries? Maybe. But I am not giving up hope on Devin Leary. I think it's a long season still. Kentucky has one of the hardest, if not the hardest schedule in the SEC, one of the hardest schedules in college football. So Georgia is the hardest game we're going to play this year, but it's going to continuously be hard, right? Next week, we are playing Missouri, who Missouri was literally ranked last year. They're not a pushover team at all. Devin Leary's our quarterback. And I am a full, firm believer that he is going to carry us to a very solid season, a bowl game, a bowl win. And I think he's the answer going forward. I know some people want to see a backup come in, maybe. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the box score here, another thing that points out to me is Ray Davis. It looks like he just got shut down the whole game, was never able to get it going. And then other than Ray Davis, I think the only other glaring thing that I can point out is the defense. I mean, the defense doesn't even look like it even showed up to play that game. I mean, getting 51 points on your head, that's one thing. But, I mean, if you look at Carson Beck's stats, 28 for 35, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. And then on top of that, they put in their backup, who also threw for a touchdown. I mean, I hate to say it, but your all's defense, that's something that I harped about last week, saying, hey, Kentucky's defense is pretty good. They might give Georgia some problems. No, I was wrong. Your all's defense did not show up to play. Didn't even look like they wanted to be there. I mean, what happened?
I think, and this is another thing I'm gonna get hate for. I still don't think Georgia is as good as we've seen the past year, but at the end of the day, it is Georgia. Um, Carson Beck really kind of put his name in the spotlight. Like, hey, I'm not Stetson Bennett, but look, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm going to do for this this team, this school. And he kind of just did whatever he wanted against Kentucky. Now, whether that's just us kind of being nervous, kind of being timid, not being prepared, I don't know what the answer is to our defense looking the way we did, or if it's kind of just the case of it was a way better offense versus a lower tier defense. Now, I'm not sitting there saying Kentucky's defense is terrible, but I think it could have just been a talent difference.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm going to say something. I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying it until he gets the recognition he needs. Parker, you may know who I'm going to mention here. Brock Bowers. When are we going to put this man in potential Heisman conversations? I mean, 7 receptions for 132 yards and a touchdown. Listen, this man is a tight end, and he is the wide receiver 1 on his team. This man is looking like Travis Kelce in college. He's turning Carson Beck into Patrick Mahomes. He is the tight end prospect that every college coach wishes that they had on their team. And he has been that since his freshman year of college. And I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. He's the best tight end of all time in college football. The best of all time. And I'm going to stand on that hill until he proves me wrong. And another thing in that game that I think is worth noting, though, Georgia had 15 minutes more of time of possession than you guys did. So
it was
I don't know how much that really factors into everything, but 15 minutes is a lot.
I think, and that's the reason why they put up 51 points, right? Kentucky's offense couldn't stay on the field. And so what that does is that makes your defense have to work overtime. They get tired. They're going to get tired for being out on the field that much. And for as much as they were out on the field, I really, that's something I do want to kind of just praise for a minute is Kentucky's rushing defense. I know Milton had a touchdown. He ran one in, but I mean, we kind of held multiple Georgia running backs to limited yards. Edwards, Dejun. How do you say that?
I don't. I'd say Dejon maybe.
Dejon, number 30 for Georgia. He was their lead rusher, 9 attempts. He only had 54 yards. Now, and that's in a blowout game where you would expect them to run the ball. But I think our rushing defense held up pretty well. I think that it wasn't something that they just ran all over us. I think it was more of an aerial attack. I think our corners, middle linebackers, our safeties got burnt over and over and over again by someone like Bowers, who, as you say, should be in the Heisman vote. And after what I've seen, what I saw last week, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think the passing defense was definitely the part of the defense that really screwed you guys over in that game. Because, I mean, if you can look past Brock Bowers, which I know it's hard to, their number 2 receiver on the day, Marcus Rosemy, 4 receptions for practically 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that boy had a hell of a day as well.
Really cool last name, too. Rosemy Jackson.
Oh, does he have a longer name than just that? Yeah, oh yeah, he does. Rosemy Jackson.
Jackson.
That's a good name. That's a fire name.
That's an NFL name right there. If I've ever seen one.
Oh, for sure. I think Brock Bowers is an NFL name. That's a
hell of
a name right there.
That needs to be a new segment coming up soon. We got to go through the best college football names.
The best. I mean, off the top of my head, I can name you one right now. Oklahoma backup QB, maybe. I think he plays tight end now, actually. But General Booty.
Wow. Are you
Yeah.
serious? I didn't even
Oh
know
yeah.
that. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
You can look up their roster right now. They got a boy on their team named General Booty.
Yep. Upcoming soon. We're gonna go through some of the best college football players' names. But
All
yeah,
right.
I think overall next week, or no, I'm sorry, this week, tomorrow, we're recording this on a Friday. Tomorrow, Kentucky plays Missouri at home. A must win. A must win for
For
Kentucky.
sure.
Uh, this then, like I said, we have such a hard schedule and we have such big games coming up soon. I genuinely think that this Missouri game, and I'll even say it, this is going to make or break our season.
Yeah, for sure. And before we segue here, Parker, I just want to announce we do have a schedule that we're gonna try our damn best to stick by. We're gonna be doing the NFL episodes on Tuesday and the college football episodes on Thursdays. So make sure to keep your eyes out on Tuesdays and Thursdays for those episodes coming out. I know this week was kind of off schedule just because we kind of came up with the schedule like today as we're recording. So just keep your eyes out on Tuesdays, Thursdays. NFL's on Tuesdays, college on Thursdays. Parker, with that being said, you want to go over week 7?
Let's do it.
All right. What are some big games that you can see on week 7 that you think are going to be interesting to watch?
Well, I think we start out with the obvious one, the one that everybody's going to be watching. And I'm actually going to the Kentucky-Missouri game tomorrow. And if I'm not mistaken, Josh, this is our first college football game that we're not going to be there together. Is that right?
Which one? Missouri, Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it's
it
the
will
first
be.
one of the
Yeah,
season.
I think it's the first
Yeah.
one.
That's going to be a hard one to
While you
swallow.
talk
I'm
about
not
this
gonna
game,
have-
I'm going to go pee.
I'm not gonna have Josh there. But Washington and Oregon, you have two quarterbacks that are both in the Heisman race, right? You have for Oregon, you have Bo Nix, who is a 6-year senior at this point. But Bo Nix, who's in the Heisman race, and then you got Michael Penix, who is I think I'm saying that last name right. I could be wrong. I'll ask Josh when he gets back. Two quarterbacks that are absolutely lights out. You look at the spread, Washington is favored by 3, which is understandable being in Washington. But this is the game that I am so looking forward to, and I can't wait to watch before heading out to Lexington. I think that it is going to be an absolute shootout. I think both quarterbacks are going to shine well. Be prepared for this if you're a betting man, take the over on the score. Because right now it's 66. I'm taking the over far and away. I know we're going to kind of go through predictions here later on, but I'll save my prediction until then. But just know this game is going to be a dog fight shootout,
We back, baby.
and I am looking forward to whoever comes out on top of this game.
Which game did we leave off at? Where did I leave you at?
Washington, Oregon. I didn't really get too deep into it. Kind of just doing the preview of the game, kind of what to look for. Obviously, the great quarterback matchup that we have between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too much into it, I'll save a little bit for the predictions, but it's going to be one hell of a game. I think the winner of this game, I think you're going to be looking at your Pac-12 champion based off the winner of this game. I know a lot of people are probably in their heads going to be thinking, oh, what about USC? Well, I'll get into that when it comes to the predictions. But yeah, I think the winner of this game is your Pac-12 championship. I guess...
A game that I kind of want to hear your opinions on really quick, because it's so big for Louisville, especially if you're talking ACC championship.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina, Miami.
Man, so with Miami's loss last week against Georgia Tech, that gives them their first conference loss. If you look at the standings, there's 3 undefeated teams in the conference as it stands today. Florida State, Louisville, UNC. So as a Louisville fan, you should be cheering for Miami tomorrow. Again, I'm not going to say my prediction yet. It's going to be a tough game. Drake May is looking like a Heisman candidate as of late. It's going to be a tough game, and it's hard to tell how Miami's going to come into that game after last week. A lot of people are saying that Cristobal, or as I like to call him, Crystal Ball. It's stupid-ass joke. A lot of people like to say he lost that locker room after that loss to Georgia Tech, but
You're so stupid. You're so stupid. God, that just clicked in my head. You're so stupid.
Yeah, fuck
Okay,
you.
continue.
So, I think it's going to be a good game, and it matters a lot for Louisville. If UNC can take an L in that game, it is at Chapel Hill. It is at home. But if Miami can somehow figure out how to win that game, then, Louisville is everything but a lock to make that, or what, I think I might have said that wrong, but Louisville's
a lock in the ACC.
Louisville's pretty much a lock for the ACC championship. Yeah.
Except,
not necessarily a lock. Technically, they do have a couple tough games coming up, but I'll get more into it later on a little bit. But it's definitely a huge game as far as ACC rankings go.
I think that if North Carolina can pull out a win against Miami, it is gonna make the stakes so much higher for that Louisville Duke game. It is gonna that is gonna determine if North Carolina wins. It is gonna determine if Louisville, I think, is gonna make the ACC championship.
It'll make the stakes really high for the Louisville Miami game as well.
Very, yes. Except, even if North Carolina loses, that means Miami has 2 losses now, compared to Louisville's potential 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But still though, both games will still matter a lot. No matter the result of this game, both games will still matter a lot.
Right. Yeah, understandable.
So
let's see. I'm kind of looking.
Yeah, so one that I can say real quick, USC Notre Dame. After last week's loss to Louisville, how do you see Notre Dame coming into this game after USC's 3 overtime win over Arizona? How do you see them coming into this game? Because I see a very clear victor here, which I will save for the predictions. I keep saying that, but I see a very clear victor here, and I want to know what your opinion is.
Listen to this. So, I think I know who you're going to say when you say you have a clear winner. But Caleb Williams and USC have been playing with fire. They have been playing fire for the past 2 weeks. When you think about Colorado, they didn't lose the game, obviously. They didn't blow the game, but they let Colorado back into that ball game, right? And then you let Arizona take you to 3 overtimes. Those are back-to-back games where it should have been dominating performances, dominating wins that they should be 6-0 without a single question, right? But now they're going into Notre Dame, they're going into Indiana, and you ask me, I'm like, how good is this game, or how good is this team? Are they a team that, or is it just a fact of they're kind of just losing interest in the game come later on because they have such a big lead, like you saw against Colorado, and they kind of just lack off? Are they putting their backups in to prevent injuries? So there's so many different questions that they could be, but to me, it looks like you got a team like Notre Dame who's in shambles after that loss. They're extremely hungry to put themselves back on the map. They've lost 2 big games to Louisville and Ohio State that both of them could have been and maybe should have been a win. I know the Louisville game was a little bit more of a blowout, but a lot of people going into that game thought Notre Dame was going to win that game. You got a team like Notre Dame that's so hungry versus a team like USC that is flirting with that first loss. I think that's going to be a good game.
I agree. I agree as well. There's one more game that I want to point out. I'm not going to say what I'm going to say because I feel like a lot of people can predict what I'm going to say here. But UCLA, Oregon State, I think will be a very shocking game, and I think it'll catch people off guard with how good of a game it'll be.
Where's that at? Is that at Oregon State?
It is at Oregon State, yeah.
Yeah, UCLA coming off a crazy win off of Washington State. I mean, we talked about it earlier. I somehow predicted that game. Now listen, when I say I predicted that game, I didn't see anything written in the stars. I just said a team, and I ended up getting it right. There was no explanation behind it. But UCLA, they pull off the win.
It was the
Now
most bullshit reach in your backpack and pull out a name thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's not as bad as somehow I picked Wyoming. Over
Very true. Very true. Very true.
But UCLA, they turn around the very next week. They play Oregon State. Man, there's a lot on the line for UCLA to show what they're really about.
Which, by the way, I just thought of this. Should we start looking at Wyoming and asking why they aren't ranked? Because they're still undefeated.
I mean, if I had to guess, let me pull them up really quick. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say it's just strength of schedule. They do have a loss, by the way. They lost to Texas.
Oh, okay. Okay, but still, come on. What are we doing here? Come on.
I think it's more or less strength of schedule. I mean, Texas Tech, Portland State, Appalachian State, New Mexico, Fresno State. I just don't think they've really played anybody yet. They don't play anybody for the rest of the season. I think if they end up winning, if they win out by the end of the year, I think they will be ranked. But just right now, just their strength of schedule compared to some of these other teams who they're playing, I think that's why probably they're not ranked.
Fair enough. Well, going back, what were you gonna say something about the UCLA Oregon State game?
No, I'm pretty much done with my little rant on that game.
Okay.
Tennessee, Texas A&M. What do you see in that?
It is at Tennessee. Texas A&M coming off of a tough loss against Alabama. Tennessee kind of having a year where people didn't really expect them to be this bad, especially after last year's high that they were on. Excuse me. Fuck. I think we will see a close game. I don't really see it being high scoring though. I think it'll be a very close, low scoring game.
Can I make a probably the hottest take you'll probably ever hear this year?
Sure.
Okay. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but I don't just why not? And this is going back to Kentucky. If Tennessee loses this game, Kentucky goes on next week and beats Tennessee. Tennessee has three losses now, kind of shoving their way out of the SEC picture. Kentucky then goes on to beat Alabama the following week. If that were to happen, let's just say if that were to happen, Kentucky goes on for the rest of the season. They beat teams like Mississippi State, and then they beat Louisville, who, if imagine Louisville is undefeated come that game. Louisville, I would say, would probably be top 10. We beat a top 10 team in Louisville. So now we finish the season with one loss. That means, and that one loss is to Georgia. Georgia wins the SEC East. More than likely, it's going to be Georgia and let's just say Alabama and the SEC championship. So Kentucky's not playing in the SEC championship. So that means we are definitely stuck with one loss. Here's my hot take. We have seen one loss SEC teams in the championship or in the playoffs. If Kentucky doesn't lose another game for the rest of the year,
man,
I think there is a world. And now, like I said, there is a million things that have to go right for Kentucky. There's a chance we see them in the playoffs if everything were to go their way.
I mean, hey, you heard it here first. Bet the house on it, boys. Kentucky's going to the playoffs.
Bet it.
No, I don't see that happening. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kentucky fans. I'm sorry, Parker. I don't see that happening, and I don't see it happening for Louisville. Even if we go undefeated, I don't see that happening for Louisville either. So, if that helps your if that helps you at all, I
Do
don't.
you think? Do you think if that were to happen and Kentucky doesn't lose another game for the rest of the season, we win out, we don't play in the SEC championship, so that's not a loss. We don't have to play Georgia or we don't have to play Alabama again or whoever wins the West. Do you think if all that happened, there's a chance that we get into the playoffs?
I th- I think it just depends because at the end of the season, if you look at the way the season's going, there's so many chances for other teams to be undefeated still over you guys, and I'm not talking about Louisville here. I'm talking about teams like Washington, Oregon. I'm talking about teams like Florida State. You still got Georgia there, Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, that's 6 teams off the top of my head that are going to be over you guys more than likely. And at the ranking you guys are at now at 24, I mean, you guys have to make a hell of a climb, and the rankings don't favor that climb in any way, especially as of right now, because Alabama's ranked 11th, Tennessee's ranked 19th, Missouri's not ranked anymore. So it's just, if you win out, you only lose one game and it's against Georgia. I can see you guys making a climb, but a climb into the top 5, I don't see that happening.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Understandable. Understandable. A boy can dream, I guess.
Oh, I appreciate the dream. I appreciate the dream for sure.
I think this is a perfect segue into play the playoffs as a whole. If you had to pick your 4 teams right now, who would it be? And kind of give an explanation why.
Do you want in order, like 1 through 4 in order, or just 4 teams?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can give 4 teams if you want to do it in order. It's whatever you want.
Okay, I'm just going to give you 4 teams, and then I'll just tell you why.
Okay.
I'm going to go Georgia because it's Georgia, and they just look unbeatable right now, especially after last week. They really showed their true colors as to, hey, we're still Georgia. So I'm going to go Georgia. Then I'm going to go Michigan. I think Michigan, other than Georgia, I think Michigan has looked like the best team in college football. Michigan has been under the radar, I think, because of their strength of schedule. They've been playing straight dog shit all year, but yet they're still blowing these teams out as the number 2 team in the nation should be doing. So that's no dig on Michigan by any means. I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna go Georgia, Michigan, and then I'm gonna go Ohio State.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Ohio State because when you look at Ohio State, now the Big Ten's really tricky because Ohio State, they have Penn State next week, and then they have Michigan to end the year. But if they beat Penn State and they only lose to Michigan, I mean, they could still be looking at a top 4 bid, and then that's a playoff bid purely off of that. And then my 4th team, I think I'm gonna go a little bit ACC rep here, and I'm gonna go Florida State. Just because, to be honest, Florida State doesn't really have that hard of a schedule to end the year. They play Duke still, but Riley Leonard's out, and I don't know when he's coming back, if he's coming back at all. So I think Duke might take a little bit of a dip in performance, and then they play Miami. And I think both games will be tough, but with how Florida State's looked, I mean, that team just looks unbeatable as well. They have shown cracks in their game, but I think they're. If I had to put my money on a 4th team, I'd go Florida State. That could be the ACC in me talking, but I think I'd go Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State. So the 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are currently standing, I think have pretty strong potential to stay 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the rest of the season.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it.
And if you want, I know you didn't ask for this, but if you want, I can give you a sneaky team that I think could sneak in there and take over. If you want, I can name it real quick.
Sure, because I'm curious to see if it's going to be my 4th team that I think is going to get in there.
So my fifth team that I think will sneak in there potentially is Penn State. Because
wow,
Penn State 5-0 right now. They look really good. Penn State looks really fucking good, and they also play Ohio State and Michigan to end the year. And I mean, shit, dude, if they can beat Ohio State and Michigan, they're probably pushing Ohio State and saying bye-bye to Ohio State out of that top 4, and they're probably pushing Michigan to that number 4 spot, if not number 5 spot. So, and on top of that, if they win the Big Ten, I mean, we could be looking at a number 1 or 2 ranked Penn State team. So I'm gonna throw Penn State in there as my sneaky. Hey, we're outside, about to kick in the door though.
Right. Okay. That is not who I was going to pick. If I had mine in order, this is in order. I would go with Georgia number 1, just because I got a feeling they're just going to win out for the rest of the season. Even in the SEC championship, if it is Alabama, if whoever it is, I think they're going to beat them. So I don't think that, even if I don't agree with it, I don't think anything's going to change them being number 1. So I think Georgia's number 1. I'm going to go Michigan number 2. I think they beat Penn State and Ohio State, both of them. So that kind of warrants them being number 2. Number 3, I will go your ACC team, Florida State. Only very similar to Georgia, just because their strength of schedule is not the hardest. They could play Louisville in the ACC championship, which could end up being really, really big. But I think if Florida State ends up beating Louisville in the ACC championship and they finish the season undefeated, that kind of warrants them at that 3rd spot. But my fourth team,
I'm excited.
Just because their strength of schedule, especially towards the end of the season, is so hard. If they can somehow pull out a win against every one of these teams, I think that you can't not put them in there. I'm going with Washington. You got Oregon this week, right? If you pull out that win, you look at the last 4 weeks of their schedule: at USC, at home against Utah, at Oregon State, and at home against Washington State. That is all top 20 teams at this exact moment. You can't deny them. That's a harder schedule than anybody else in the top 10 as far as ranked opponents go. No one else plays anything close to that. I think I think Penn State, they fall out just because overall, if they do win, like you said, if they beat Ohio State and Michigan, they'll be in the conversation. But I personally think that they'll lose both of those games. I think Michigan beats Ohio State, which bumps them out. Oklahoma, obviously, that's going to be a case. It's going to be hard not to put them in there. So I think
depends, because they play Texas again towards the end of the season, so we got to see how that second game goes. But yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah, Oklahoma's got their name in the hat as well.
So I would do Washington in that 4th team, and then Oklahoma on the door, that 5th team, out the outside looking in.
So I actually have a pretty decent counter argument to that team, but again, I've said it, I think 3 times already. I'll save it for the predictions. But based off of me saying that, Parker, let's go ahead and jump into the predictions, because I'm tired of waiting to talk about some of these teams. So let's go ahead and jump into it if you're okay.
Yeah, and real quick, just to keep the viewers up to date, we said we were going to tally every week going forward. Last week,
God.
we went through all the games. We made our predictions. Our record where it stands is mine. I did way better than I thought I would, and a lot of them I had no say in it at all. I'd kind of just pick names, kind of like just drawing them out of a hat. I went 11-4 somehow. I went 11-4, and 2 of those was I picked Kentucky and I picked Notre Dame. That's 2 of them. Chad, he's still above 500. Had a few more losses. Had a few more losses. He went 9-6. So we definitely need a rebound from Chad or Josh. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's a potential playoff berth right there. That's a potential playoff berth. So I'll take it.
That's a wild card.
That's a wild card. So I'll take it.
All right, let's jump into them.
All right, first game of the day: Syracuse at Florida State.
Florida State.
Arkansas at Alabama.
Alabama. I'm sorry.
Alabama. Now this one's a tough one. This one might be close. Georgia at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think this is a dogfight. I could see Georgia pulling this one out 7-0, maybe.
Yeah, I think Georgia will win in probably no less than 3 overtimes.
It might be 3-0. Be honest with you, final score.
Yeah, it definitely could be. The next game we've got Ohio State at Purdue.
I think I'm being serious when I say this. I'm not joking this time. I think this is going to be a closer game than people think. I'm picking Ohio State, but I think that Purdue has a chance to make this thing interesting.
Yeah, I think it could be a decent game. I'm going Ohio State, though. Our next one, we got Indiana at Michigan.
And I'm picking this one as the blowout of the week. Michigan will beat the brakes off of Indiana.
I'm going Michigan as well. Next game, California at Utah.
This is interesting. Just because California just came off a shootout against Oregon State, where they had chances to win that game, I'm going to go California.
I am going to go Utah, and I hope I don't eat my words here, because if Parker pulls another upset out of his ass, I'm going to be pissed. So I'm going to go Utah. Utah, don't fucking fail me, please. Next game here, Parker. Oregon at Washington.
I'm picking Washington solely from the fact that it's at Washington. I think that crowd's going to be quote unquote electric, and I think that's going to help them pull out the win.
I'm taking Oregon, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Oregon and Washington, when you look at those two teams, you look at their offenses, and they're both insane. They both have 2 elite QBs at the helm, leading both of those teams in a battle every week. But when you look at the defensive side of the ball, and you look at which team is the most well-rounded, you come out and you say Oregon. And I think I think Oregon is the better well-rounded team when it comes to offense and defense, and I think Oregon manages to give Washington their first L, and I think, Parker, going back to just a couple minutes ago, I think that is why Washington will not make the college football playoffs, because I believe Oregon will pull off the win tomorrow.
Okay. That's fair. If Washington loses any of those games, my whole point, my whole rant was completely mute, because I think they got to go perfect.
Yeah. Next game here, we got UMass at Penn State.
God, UMass is 1-6.
Penn State.
Jesus.
Excuse me.
Who did they beat? Oh, they beat New Mexico State out of all teams. Wow. God. Okay. Anyway.
Right. Next game.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. They played New Mexico State and New Mexico. I thought they played New Mexico State twice already this year.
All right. Next game, we got Kansas at Oklahoma State.
Who are you picking here?
I'm going Kansas, because Oklahoma State doesn't really look that good this season. They look pretty fucking bad. So I'm going to go Kansas.
Okay. Solely off your explanation, I'm going to go Oklahoma State.
All right. Look, I'll put it this way. Oklahoma State lost to Iowa State, and Iowa State is widely regarded as one of the worst teams in the country.
Hey.
Hold on though.
They are 3-3.
Hold on. To back up,
they beat TCU.
hold on. To back up. Wait, what? No, they didn't. I was about to say, to back up your point though, they did beat Kansas State, but if you look at Kansas State's season, they are also not that great. So
they beat TCU though, a team that was in the championship last year. I know they're
Who
terrible, but
who beat TCU?
Iowa State.
Oh, Iowa State did.
Yeah, yeah.
TCU's fucking horrible this year.
Hey, all I'm saying, put some respect on the Cyclones.
I'll put respect on Brock Purdy, but that's about it.
Fair.
Next game, we got Texas A&M at Tennessee.
A game that I'm really looking forward to watching. The flip back between Washington and Oregon and Tennessee, Texas A&M is going to be insane tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna go with Tennessee. I think either team can win it, but this is more or less me wanting Tennessee to win because I want Tennessee to play Kentucky with only one loss.
gotcha. Man, I'm really conflicted on this game because I think it's going to be close, and I think both teams have a pretty good chance of winning.
Right.
I'm gonna go A&M. I'm gonna go A&M here.
Bounce back opportunity.
Yeah, a bounce back game here. I think they're gonna come into this game with some vengeance after that Alabama loss. Which in all fairness, I know we kind of talked bad about A&M's defense, and we talked really good about why am I blanking on his name? Milroe. But I mean, all things considered, A&M only lost by a touchdown deficit. So I think A&M. I'm going A&M. I'm going A&M.
No, I agree. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Texas A&M to get that bounce back win to just kind of get the morale up in the locker room.
Yeah, right. All right, next one. Louisville at Pitt.
Louisville, right? I'm picking Louisville, but you know what's crazy? Louisville's only favored by 7.5.
Which doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
I'll get into that, but it doesn't make much sense at all. But yeah, I'm going Pitt. No, obviously I'm joking. Obviously I'm joking. I'm going Louisville, and I would take the spread on that any day because I think Louisville. I mean, Pitt looks horrible this year. Pitt just looks so embarrassing this year compared to the recent years that Pitt has had. I mean, God, it's disgusting.
Pittsburgh versus Iowa State. Who are you picking?
Dude,
that's crazy. That's crazy. The fact that you're thinking this hard about it's insane.
What do you mean? They're both bad. They're both terrible.
Iowa State is better by leaps and bounds, though. Leaps and bounds, they're better.
I mean, off of what
this season? No, just this season alone, Iowa State has proven to be such a better football club than Pittsburgh.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. To be fair, I haven't sat down and watched these teams or looked at their stats or anything like that, so I really don't know how they compare against each other. I just know that both Iowa teams are super sleeper and probably are guaranteed to put up at most 14 points a game. So I just, I don't have much interest in watching Iowa football.
Fair.
Next game, I'm surprised we didn't talk about this earlier, but Auburn at LSU.
I think that we didn't really talk about it because I think the same thing's going to happen tomorrow. I think LSU's going to win this pretty convincingly, to be honest.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go LSU. I don't think.
Go ahead.
I don't think it'll be too convincing of a win, but just because LSU's defense looks so bad. LSU's defense looks horrible. And if Auburn can take advantage of that defense, then, I mean, we could have a close game on our hands. But that LSU offense looks pretty good. So, yeah, I'm going LSU. But, I mean, if Auburn can take advantage of that defense, then shit.
Right. I think it's a win for Auburn if they beat the spread, which is 11. I think that should be their goal. To win, to lose, if they're going to lose within 11 points.
Right. Next game, we got Arizona at Washington State.
Two bounce back losses. Two teams coming off of losses. You know what? No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna pull off I'm not gonna take the upset. I'm taking Washington State here. But I mean Arizona, man. They shocked me versus USC last week. I didn't think they were gonna put up that big of a fight against them, but they did. But I think I'm gonna pick Washington State here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also going Washington State, and I don't think it will be as close as the Arizona USC game was because, I mean, you can say this about so many Pac-12 defenses, in my opinion, but USC's defense is just so bad. It's so
Right.
bad. Like it's one of the worst in college football. And compared to that offense, I mean, it's just it's horrible. It's like when the offense is on the field, it's can't miss with football. But once that defense touches the field, you immediately switch channels to a different game because you just know that defense isn't going to stop shit.
Right, right.
Next game here, we got Missouri at Kentucky.
Like I said earlier, a game that I will be sitting midfield, so be looking out for me in the stands there. I'll be wearing blue, kind of just stand out from everybody else. I'm going Kentucky for once again. I think this is a great opportunity, but I could easily see if you're going to pick Missouri, I easily see where you can do that as well.
No, I'm gonna go Kentucky here just because it's a home game. If it was at Missouri, I'd probably go Missouri, but because it's at Kroger Field, I'm gonna go Kentucky. And just to add on to the point, you can catch Parker pretty easily. He's a blonde-haired white boy who will be midfield in all blue in the Kentucky Stadium. So just keep your eye out for him in the stands on the TV. You might see him.
Where the hell did blonde come from?
I don't fucking know. I'm just kind of adding to the stereotype of people that. Well, I don't know. I'm just kind of adding to the stereotype. Let's see. Next game here, we got USC at Notre Dame.
What do you have to say about this one?
I'm going Notre Dame because, again, like I said probably 30 seconds ago, I'm pretty sure, USC's defense is horrendous. It's so bad. Like, it's so bad. And I'm sure Caleb Williams will work wonders on offense. I'm sure he'll put points on the board. But if Notre Dame is just doing the same exact thing on offense and putting up just as many points on offense, and I mean, quite frankly, a significantly better defense compared to USC's defense, I mean, Notre Dame might give USC some trouble. And it's at South Bend. I'm taking Notre Dame here for sure.
After last week, watching the performance Notre Dame put up, I'm gonna go USC here. I think this kind of is the game that because Notre Dame, you lose to Ohio State, okay, wash game. Anybody could have won that game, especially if you were to put 11 men out in the field. You can easily win that game. And then you go to Louisville, crazy atmosphere, a game that you were honestly destined to lose. Like that was like if you were going to pick an upset, you could see that upset brewing from a mile away at the end of the day.
I mean, real quick, we talk about atmosphere. I mean, Notre Dame fans by no means, I think, should not show out for this game. I mean, you're going up against a top 10 team in the nation. I mean, I would be very wrong if I were to say that the fans won't show out in South Bend for this game. I think the crowd will be cheering. I think the crowd will be popping for Notre Dame. And especially with the points that I just said, with it being at South Bend, with the crowd being the way that I think it might be, I mean, I think Notre Dame's going to take it.
I hope you're right as far as the crowd goes because I feel like so many teams, and Kentucky and Louisville are both they are right there with everybody else. Your team that they are projected to have X amount of losses. If they lose a game, they're not supposed to. Granted, if they lose 2 games, they're supposed to win. I feel like everybody gives up on their season. They automatically think it's a failure season off games that can go either way. You guys just came up short. And I hope that Notre Dame, with 2 losses against 2 really good opponents, people aren't thinking that this team is not as good as people say they are, because Notre Dame is still a good football team. But with that being said, I am picking USC.
I mean, a solid pick still, though, nonetheless. Caleb Williams is phenomenal. So, I mean, I respect the pick. Next game here, Miami at UNC.
I'm going to go Miami here. I'm going to go Miami.
You know, we could both be very wrong with this pick that we're both going, but for the sake of Louisville's season, I'm also going Miami. Not to say that if Miami loses, Louisville's season is also over. It strongly affects our potential at making the ACC championship, even if we are undefeated. So for the sake of our season, I'm going Miami as well.
And kind of just looking, this is the first real test that North Carolina is. I know, and earlier this episode you said that Drake May is looking like a Heisman candidate, but they're playing borderline bums. You know what I mean? This is a real test for Notre Dame and North Carolina, and to show what Drake May is really about.
Yeah, I agree. Next game here, and before I get your opinion on it, it's a UCLA at Oregon State. But before you say your prediction, I just want to point out an interesting thing that might change your opinion, maybe not, depending on who you were going to pick. But Oregon State lost to Washington State. UCLA beat Washington State. I don't know if that's going to change your opinion or at all, but just know that is a thing that happened.
I'm gonna go with Oregon State still, but yeah, I'm just gonna stick with my gut. I'm gonna go Oregon State, and I think that the UCLA win was huge for the program and just huge for the season. But I think that Cinderella story is gonna come way short to what people think it's gonna be.
Yeah. I agree. I'm going to go Oregon State. It's at home. I think that'll add a huge factor for Oregon State. And like I said earlier in the episode, UCLA, when you look at that team, it's mainly their defense. Their offense is led by a true freshman. So they're going to be leaning on his shoulders heavily for an offensive performance here. I think last week was a huge win for them in that program for sure, like you said already. But I'm going to take Oregon State at home. I think UCLA being at home last week greatly affected their chances at winning that football game, which obviously it did because they won. But with them being away now at Oregon State, I think Oregon State takes it.
Right. Agreed.
The last one here, also a pretty interesting game. We got NC State at Duke.
Another really good game that can go either way. Who are you thinking here before I make my pick? Because you know the ACC better than I do.
Listen, so like I said earlier in the episode, no Riley Leonard for this game, so no Duke starting quarterback, which is a huge part of that team, but still a very aggressive football team, still a team that's going to go out there and give you a hard time regardless. That defense is still really good, but they're coming into the game with a backup QB against, statistically, this is not my opinion, statistically, the number one defense in the ACC and NC State. So, based off of that, I think I'm going to go NC State here. Because, if you have the number one defense in the ACC against, another team who people think have a really good defense, but at the same time that offense also has a backup QB. Now, granted, NC State also has their backup QB in, but that's because of their own choosing. They chose to start him over Brennan Armstrong after the Louisville game, and I mean, it paid dividends. They won last week, so I mean, they played Marshall, so I mean, take that as you will. But the kid performed well, and I think NC State takes it.
Yeah, right. I mean, your points there were extremely valid. I'll be honest with you. That I'm still gonna go Duke. I was gonna go Duke originally, and then you just told me everything you just did, and I didn't know that about NC State, about how good their defense really is. I'm gonna go Duke solely from the fact that it's at Duke. I think Duke still has really high hopes for their season, and just their one loss to Notre Dame isn't gonna really affect them. Especially, I think the bye week is really helping them kind of get over that loss and kind of put it in the rearview mirror. I'm going to go Duke here.
Yeah, I just think with them missing Riley Leonard, I think that's such a big piece of their team that I don't think many people think is a big piece of their team. Because of their running back's success so far, which, by the way, isn't even their running back isn't even their leading rusher. It's Riley Leonard, who I just said was out. So I mean, not having Riley Leonard is a huge part of this team's success. So yeah, I'm pretty firm on my NC State pick, but I could be choking on that pick come tomorrow night.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
Parker, that's going to do it from us for another episode of Take His Whistle podcast. We thank you guys for listening if you made it this far. Parker, any final thoughts or words?
No, I really don't got anything. Once again, I don't got anything at the end of the video. Just stay tuned, really, honestly. There's still big things like Chad mentioned mid-video. We are going to try to really get the schedule going and consistently upload. Our plan, like he said, is professional NFL on Tuesdays, and then Thursdays are college football. And if there is anything else you kind of want us to cover, let us know. For sure, we're sport addicts. It doesn't matter what sport it is. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna have our takes on it. Just football is our favorite. So that's kind of why we want to talk about football so much, because we just love football so much. But if there is anything else that you guys want us to talk about, let us know, because we will for sure do it.
Yeah, and as always, we appreciate you guys for listening, and we will see you guys on Tuesday for the second NFL episode. See you guys.
Peace.